10,000 children, now listen to this, 10,000 children are brought from Mexico into the United States, forced into the commercial sex trade every year. And they're in New York City, forced into the commercial sex trade, where she was raped, not exaggerating, 50 to 60 times a day. Had there been a wall, a barrier, this little girl wouldn't have been trafficked there. Period. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows it works. Everybody knows the idea is you push the people, you push the traffic to the ports of entry. And that's how you rescue the kids who the traffickers are trying to get through. We rescued that little boy because the traffickers were forced to go through the port of entry. Walls are a good thing to protect children. The people who are fighting this know that it works. We have elected officials, and I know I'm talking to the choir, and you guys are trying to fix this, who hate the president more than they love America, more than they love a solution, more than they love trafficked children. Had there been a wall, Delia wouldn't have been trafficked. 10,000 children are living in hell. Let me tell you something. The wall is what allows the promise of the Statue of Liberty to be a reality. Principle over politics. God over politics.
Movie. Thank you, my good friend Tim Ballard. Read Tim's bio, but we want to give him all the rest of the time.
Thank you, Dan. Well, thank you so much. I love coming here. The Eagle Forum, I just love it in this world that's all about politics. You are about principle, and you fight for your principles, and there's nothing that you do that I just don't love. It's just, so thank you. Gail, thank you for leading this. We need this. We need it. It needs to be bigger. Thank you. So amazing. So this, yesterday was the anniversary of the operation. I was supposed to be here speaking last year, and instead you got this video. Well, I want to tell you more about what that was all about, what happened there. It was January 11th last year. It just happens to be Human Trafficking Awareness Day that this all happened. That was very providential to us. And I'm going to show you a clip. So what we did became a documentary through just amazing coincidences and a series of really providential encounters. We ended up getting, it was made into a documentary. I'm going to show the trailer. It's called Operation Two Saint. It's on Amazon Prime. You can watch it there. I'm going to show you the clip in a second. But basically, we went after the worst of the worst, people who are enslaving children. Number 3 per capita in the world is Haiti, the island nation of Haiti. And we went after the top criminal organization that was kidnapping and enslaving children for sex, to be sold to American tourists. We are the number 1 consumer, by the way, United States of America, of child rape videos and this horrible thing, which is why our team is pretty effective in infiltrating the dark criminal organizations, because we can play that role. And that's what we did. We went into Haiti, and over the course of a year, we infiltrated these organizations. And it all kind of culminated on January 11th last year, and it was ups and downs and a crazy story that's told in this documentary, Operation Two Saint. But we culminated on January 11th, and we found the kingpin traffickers, arrested them, and more importantly, found the children who they were abusing. Children who they had kidnapped at the age of 6, 7, 8 years old in the wake of that terrible earthquake, and forced them into sex slavery. We found them, and we didn't know where they were going to be. And this is an important point I want to bring up before I show you this clip. We did everything we could, and then we relied on our principles, the very principles that the Eagle Forum teaches. We turn the rest over to God. We make God and heaven a partner in what we are doing. The cause of liberty is the cause of God, like Stan was mentioning. This is so much of why we are here and where we were before we came here. I mean, it is about liberty. And so we turned these things over to God. And I want to tell you what happened. As in fact, the documentary it was done by this group back east who they're Emmy winners, and we didn't give them instructions, and yet the movie opens with a prayer, with the prayer that we're pleading that we can find these kids. We don't know where they are, we just know where the bad guys are. And we believed in this prayer, and the prayer was about help us find the children. Now, as we're driving up, this is the final scene of the operation. We're driving up the street. We're T-minus 3 minutes to arresting these bad guys, and one of my evidence technicians, who's got the cameras and who's filming, leaps to the back of the van where we're sitting with a little GoPro camera. And I'm looking at him and saying, Jake, what are you doing? You know, we're about 3 minutes away. He's like, I don't know. I just have to put this GoPro camera on this Haitian cop who's sitting behind me facing backwards. The hatch is going to open. He's going to jump out and with the rest of the cops. There's about 15 SWAT cops, Haitians, who are going to go in and make these arrests. And he says, this guy needs a camera on his helmet. And I'm just kind of laughing as he sticks this little GoPro on this kind of sleek Kevlar helmet, turning it into now what looks like an awkward like miner's cap, as he takes this duct tape and awkwardly stretches it and wraps it around, his helmet, and the Haitian cop lets him do it. Anyway, long story short, we get out there. You're going to see some scenes in a minute. The arrests happen, and we're scanning. We're looking. Where are the kids? They're not talking. Are the kids near here? They must be near here, hidden somewhere. And then this red door opens up across the street. And we look up, and there, walking out of this door, are these 3 little children, dressed like prostitutes, shattered looks on their faces. And then behind them, this cop. And the cop is distressed, and he says, they got away. What are you talking about? We're saying, who got away? All the bad guys. What had happened was this cop walked in as the children were being abused in that moment. When the vans opened and everyone jumped out, one of the cops of the 15 on the ground saw a little girl run into the red door. And he thought, there's probable cause to go in there. He goes in there. He should have called for backup. He didn't. We're still training these guys. And he went in by himself, and he didn't know what to do with himself as he saw all these kids being abused and the bad guys running around, throwing their clothes on, running out. He's like, and he was distressed. I missed him. And then I hear Jake Justice, my evidence technician, the tape guy, the GoPro camera guy, and he yells out, you didn't miss him. We got him. So what do you mean we got him? We walk up, and the dust is settling, it's dark, and we get closer to the cop, and sure enough, of the 15 cops who raided the street that night, the one who saw the girl, the one who went in the red door, was the one who Jacob Justice, my evidence technician, put the GoPro camera on and filmed every pixel, every second of what's happened, allowing us to identify the guys that got away, and more importantly, lock evidence about what the people that we just arrested were doing. It was a miracle. And I'm going to get back to the significance of that miracle and what happens when you partner with heaven and how that is so lacking in our country today. This roll, the Operation 2 Saint. I never dreamed that I would work in Haiti. I didn't know anything really about Haiti until I learned about a little boy who was born in Utah, U.S. citizen, and was kidnapped in Haiti from his church, where his father was the pastor. I read about it in the local newspaper. I thought that I could make it into a U.S. case, and I couldn't because it wasn't. We had to leave our jobs. I had to leave my job because I just had to do something about it. We went to Haiti to look for his son.
Yeah, it's right here.
And we never found him.
People weren't talking about human trafficking like they are now. And really it's because of the work and efforts by organizations like Operation Underground Railroad.
It's a subject that nobody wants to think about or talk about. It's the worst part of humanity.
Those two virgins, 13 and 14 years old. Wow.
And yet, we've got to do something about it.
Please get on the ground right now. Get on the ground. Get on the ground right now. Get on the ground. Put that down. Get on the ground.
Every 30 seconds, a child is sold. They're sold for sex, they're sold for labor, they're sold for organ harvesting, which is something we're now getting into. There's 6 million children that are forced into one of those 3 categories right now, and the world doesn't know.
Not a lot of people know, but the profile for men who travel abroad to have sex with kids are American citizens.
The US creates the demand. The highest producer and consumer of child pornography is right here in the United States.
Well, if you lost one of your children to one of these evil people, you'd do anything to get even and get your child back.
I had a knock on my door one day. Tim said, listen, I really feel like I can do better leaving the government.
I'd find a group of kids in Guatemala or Colombia, and I couldn't do anything about it because it wasn't a US case. It's outside of the jurisdiction, and I understood that. However, that doesn't mean that we couldn't be doing more.
Tim Ballard left his law enforcement career, everything that he knew, his pension, his security, to start a nonprofit called Operation Underground Railroad. They've done jumps everywhere throughout the world, rescued kids, and then helped them get to a safe place with their aftercare programs.
He had a way that we could really make an impact, but they needed $1 million to start. And I said, I'm in.
We had set up this operation that looked like it went flawless.
We unfortunately got some very frustrating news.
The traffickers were being released and that all the girls were released.
They pay money to the right people, to the judges. The job's not quite done, but it's almost done because now we need to go back and we need to rearrest every single one of these traffickers. It will be a message to Haiti, to America, to the whole world, that there are good people everywhere that will stand up for this. I want to get back to, I want you to think about that miracle that made it possible for us to find those kids. And if someone in the front, Gail, remind me to tell, if I don't tell you what happened after we got the kids out and talked to them, because I want to make sure I don't get too far off the tangent. I'm going to come back to it. That miracle is important. And I, being a nonprofit organization, we're supposed to kind of stay, a little apolitical. I'm going to get a little political if you don't mind. It's okay if I can do that. I'm with people who are into policy and because I'm just really frustrated right now, especially with what's happening right now and how it affects my work and our work at Operation Underground Railroad. I want to tell you a story about a little girl who works for us. She works for us now. The most heartbreaking story. Her name is Delia. And she was kidnapped in Mexico not too long ago. Kidnapped by traffickers. Brought up, because like I told you, the demand is here. We're the sex addicts here in this country, and thank the Lord for Clay Olson and what he's doing to help educate people to stop that demand. And so traffickers want to get these kids up here to the United States. 10,000 children, now listen to this, 10,000 children are brought from Mexico into the United States, forced into the commercial sex trade every year. We're now close to between 200 and 300,000 children now in this country being forced into sex slavery. Delia, this little girl, is one of them. She's brought to our northern border, crosses because there's no wall. Can you guess where I'm going to go? She crosses illegally. They smuggle her in, take her to New York City, and there, guys, this is in the last 5 years. Okay, this is right now. And there in New York City, forced into the commercial sex trade, where she was raped, not exaggerating, 50 to 60 times a day. She rescued herself. She told her trafficker an amazing story. She said, I'm going to break out of here and you're going to jail. She got beat up and laughed at for that, but she did it within 6 months. She broke out. She got to the police. She's now the star witness. We can't bring her out because she's a star witness in a major federal case against these traffickers. Now, why is this relevant today and why am I frustrated? Talking about principle over politics, talking about what we're watching in the news right now. Had there been a wall, a barrier, this little girl wouldn't have been trafficked there. Period. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows it works. I worked on the border for 12 years as an agent. Everybody knows the idea is you push the people, you push the traffic to the ports of entry. And that's how you rescue the kids who the traffickers are trying to get through. There's death traps all over where there's holes. And that's where Delia, and that's where those people come up, and that's where the bad guys force the kids. Talk about children and worrying about children. By the way, that policy that needs to be changed when an adult gets arrested and they have a child there. It's just like it happens every day away from the border. When children are at the meth house and everyone gets arrested, what are they going to do with the child? Well, in this case, there's nowhere to send the child, so they put them in a place that's not ideal, and then it needs to be changed. But that was going on under Obama. I was there under the Obama administration. Nothing changed. Okay, it's not about principle. It's about hate and politics. Nothing changed. It's been the same. Nothing changed when Trump got into office. It's been that way always, and it needs to be adjusted. But anyway, one example. Gail mentioned this movie. Pull that picture up so there's a movie that's being done that just was. It's going to come out 20th Century Fox. Jim Caviezel, the actor who plays the Jesus in The Passion of the Christ, Mel Gibson's. He's also in The Count of Monte Cristo, which is why that's one of my favorite movies. I request that he be the actor that played me in this movie, and we were lucky enough to get him. But this is at that port of entry, the real port of entry where this happened, and this is part of the story, the true story of this little boy. We rescued that little boy because the traffickers were forced to go through the port of entry, and technology and tools there to analyze and assess and rescue. Okay, so this is why the walls are a good thing to protect children. Now, the frustrating part for me is that the people who are fighting this know that it works. And you know this. They've been promoting, they've been trying to, under different leadership, they were trying to get it done because it works. And the frustrating part is that we have elected officials, and I know I'm talking to the choir, and you guys are trying to fix this, who hate the president more than they love America, more than they love a solution, more than they love trafficked children. They hate more than they love. They hate one man. This is devastating. This is devastating to me. Had there been a wall, Delia wouldn't have been trafficked. 10,000 children are living in hell in this country, in this promised land, because of this. And we're told, what are we told? We're told that it's either the wall or the Statue of Liberty. One or the other. The wall is is not what we want people to see when they come here. It's the Statue of Liberty. Let me tell you something. The wall is what allows the promise of the Statue of Liberty to be a reality. My children, we rescued 2 children that you learn about if you watch Operation Two Saint, and we brought them home. 2 children that had been kidnapped and trafficked, and they're our children now. And we brought them in the right way, the legal way. And when I read these words, thinking about the trajectory of their lives, where they were heading, and where they ended up, let me show you where they ended up. Can you throw that picture up, where they ended up? And I think of the Statue of Liberty. That was June 18th of this year, one of the best, maybe the best day of my life. And I think of Emma Lazarus' poem about the Statue of Liberty that says, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be breathed free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore, send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door." Because of the Statue of Liberty and what it represents, I was able to bring these 2 Haitian children home. Because there was no wall, Delia was brought to this country in the way that she was. And again, the point is that they know it. And that's the frustrating part. They know that that policy will save children and keep people safe. And so I was asking myself, what is it? What is going on? That there's no principle, that politics dominates, that hate dominates over principle. And I thought of the founding fathers of this country. I listened to some of what Stan was talking about. What's the check? What's the check on that evil that gets into people's hearts? I go back to the miracle of Jake Justice and the GoPro camera and pleading to heaven, principles you teach. That's the check. It's what our founding fathers learned. That's the check. What's the check? What's the void? It's heaven. God is the check. Some of our great founding fathers learned that the hard way. George Washington learned that the hard way through 8 years of war. He learned the only way we're going to win this is God Almighty. On him we must principally rely. That's a quote from him. That's our number one policy option to win this war, God. And then everything else second. He must be part of this. And so after 8 years of war, on April 30th, 1789, when he takes the oath of office, he's about to become the first president. The Constitution of the United States is about to come forward on this day. And he's learned a lot over the 8 years of the war leading up to this point. And what does he tell the nation? He harks back to that, what he learned, the check on the people, the check, so we don't have the awkward couple standing at the podium saying things they don't believe. What's the check? Here's what he said. Here's his words. He says, the smiles of heaven. This is the first president, first inaugural address ever in this nation. He says, the smiles of heaven can never be expected upon a nation that disregards the eternal rules of order and right, which heaven itself has ordained. I'm going to say it one more time. The smiles of heaven can never be expected upon a nation that disregards the eternal rules of order and right, which heaven itself has ordained. For the same reason John Adams said this Constitution won't work, except for spiritually minded people, except for religious people that allow God into the equation, into the public square. I don't need to tell you this, but the First Amendment is separation of church and state, not God and state, very different things. They were trying to bring God in as much as they could because that's the check. That's what stops the people from lying. That's what stops the people from electing others who hate one man more than they love children, more than they love America, more than they love a solution to serious problems. Abraham Lincoln learned the same thing. He went through a conversion during his presidency. He had to learn that he had been wrong about some things, about the purpose of the war. And he made it about human liberty. And once he made that conversion, I have a book out there called The Lincoln Hypothesis. You can go buy that as well. It tells the whole story. I wish I had all day to talk about it. Because that conversion is so important. It's the conversion that our elected leaders need, that we all need. And he recognized that this was under God. Stan talked about it. He quoted him just a second ago when Lincoln said the judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. And then by the end, Lincoln starts saying what all of our elected officials should say. Imagine a president saying this. He says, this is a speech he gave as president after his conversion. We have been the recipients of the choicest bounties of heaven. We have been preserved these many years in peace and prosperity. We have grown in numbers, wealth, and power as no other nation has ever grown, but we have forgotten God. We have forgotten the gracious hand which preserved us in peace and multiplied and enriched and strengthened us. And we have vainly imagined in the deceitfulness of our hearts that all these blessings were produced by some superior wisdom and virtue of our own. Intoxicated with unbroken success, we have become too self-sufficient to feel the necessity of redeeming and preserving grace, too proud to pray to the God that made us. Let us then, or it behooves us, he says, to humble ourselves before the offended power and confess our national sins and pray for forgiveness. Man, we need this right now. But who's going to stand up and say it? We celebrate Washington Day and the President's Day and Lincoln Day. Everybody reveres them. But if we were to quote their words, we boot off the stage. Who's going to stand up and do it? Do we have elected officials who are willing to stand up and say, you know what they thought? Do you know how they got us out of our crises? This is how they did it. They couldn't have been clearer about that. This is how they did it. Principle over politics. God over politics. Okay. So I'm running out of time. Gail asked me to talk about the movie, the Jim Caviezel movie. Now I got a treat for you because I'm going to show you some contraband, okay?
What about the end of the story?
And thank you. The end of the story comes right after that. If they give me 3 extra minutes. Gail, you're the boss. You can just tell me. Okay. So 20th Century Fox is doing a movie about the OUR story, which we're so grateful for because we believe that telling the story is what brings awareness, which changes hearts, which allows people to rise up and do the right thing and liberate the captive. And 20th Century Fox came to us and said, we're doing this movie. Who do you want to play you? I said, Jim Caviezel. It has to be Jim Caviezel. He's my favorite actor. And they said, he doesn't look like you. We're not going to choose him. I said, well, you can dye his hair if you need to. And sure enough, you'll see what they did. They dyed his hair. But it tells an amazing story about one of the big rescues we did not long ago, 120 children rescued, one of our very first operations in Colombia. Today, if I forget to tell you later, we're in 20 countries, 22 states. We've been able to rescue about 1,800 children now from trafficking. And we're about over 800 traffickers and pedophiles who are now in jail. And half our cases are here in the U.S. That's a scary thing, but about half of our operations. So I'm not supposed to show this to anyone because the movie's not done yet. They filmed everything already. Now they're in post-edit, and they're going to decide when to bring it out. And it's not a trailer, but it's clips from the film. You can see how these guys did it. Jim Caviezel is a very God-fearing man. He would love. We were trying to get him to speak. I almost got him here today, but I can tell you, agrees with 100% of everything Eagle Forum is doing. A God-fearing man, understands things, which is why I wanted him to be the one who played me. And I hope you can sense his spirit in some of this here. This is 20th Century Fox protected material. Do not film this, and don't tell them I'm showing you. In fact, I appreciate this movie. This movie lit a fire under the Colombians to finish the prosecution quick because they didn't want this movie to end with where are they now and find out that, well, some of them aren't in jail anymore. So the movie did a lot to actually push the prosecution through. That movie comes out, I think, late next year, we think. I'm not exactly sure. Okay, in conclusion, I want to go back to the story, back to these kids and this red door. Mike, you have a picture of that red door? Yeah, show it. So, the little girls that came out looking like prostitutes, right? Within a day later, they were in our aftercare center with our director of aftercare. This is actually the guy's camera. I told you the story. You're watching the real. Don't worry, we're not going to show you the bad stuff. It will cut before then. But you're watching the cop. The story I just told you when he went through the red door, and then we got those kids out, They didn't speak for 24 hours. When they finally spoke, it was very profound. The first words out of this little girl's mouth, she says, "Can I have hope? Can I really have hope?" And she says, "Do you realize that I was kidnapped 8 years ago today?" They were kidnapped. She was kidnapped after the earthquake. Her parents were killed. My children's parents were killed in the same earthquake. But they went, it's harvest time for the traffickers during an earthquake, during a disaster like this. And they come in and they take all the kids and they traffic them throughout the world. And I thought about what she meant by that. She was behind this red door. She knew that she lived in maybe the most obscure country on the planet, and worse than that, the darkest corner of that most obscure nation in the world. Who was going to open that red door? And that's why she couldn't believe it. She couldn't believe the door opened. And someone found her in the darkest corner of the planet, pulled her out. And she had a little baby, by the way, who the traffickers were holding that we got out to. 4 little babies from these 3 who are now early teenage girls who had been trafficked. We got them all out. And our promise to you who support us is that we go to those dark places. We go to those red doors that are all over the world. And we appreciate your prayers and your support, that you are the light that we take with us when we go through those doors and deliver liberty to them. And you don't have to be fighting trafficking, by the way, to apply these principles, because you do this. You are liberating the captive. Every single one of your policies that you put forth, think about it. You are liberating the captive in one way or another. And so it starts with you. We talked about Abraham Lincoln and his conversion to liberty, to what he was supposed to do with his presidency. And he let God in finally. But he wasn't the first. You are the first. You'll beat the policymakers to the punch. And you are the Harriet Beecher Stowe's in this analogy, in this parallel. Harriet Beecher Stowe saw the problem well before Lincoln or many of the policymakers, and she fought and she wrote her book, Uncle Tom's Cabin. She stumbled upon slavery. She saw the problem. She saw that the government wasn't doing anything about it. So she yelled and she screamed and she wrote her book. This is what you're doing with all your initiatives. And when the president met her for the first time in the White House during the war, he said to her, he grabbed her hand, he held her hand, he said, "So you're the lady who wrote the book that started this war." That's what you're doing. You are writing the book that's starting the war against evil. And so I thank you. I thank you for letting me come here. I'm honored to be here. God bless all of you. God bless this land. Thank you so much. Had there been a wall, this little girl wouldn't have been trafficked.
No way that deep state were ever going to go after one of their own.
Being pro-life is being pro-woman.
Because if we take from our children their true history, they don't know where they come from.
Salt Lake County, through initiatives, can tell the whole rest of the state what to do, and that's exactly what happened.